Today we're going to talk about 5 scales that every improviser should have in the toolkit. Stick around. Hello everyone, it's James from Practice Like a Pro, providing you simple, clear guitar tips to help you on your guitar playing journey. So in today's lesson I want to talk about 5 scales that you've probably come across 1 or 2 of them before, and how you can use them in improvisation. And if you're new to improvising, this is probably a great place for you to start, and it'll let you play over a wide range of backing tracks. So let's get straight into it. This one's the most obvious one, and I can feel you all rolling your eyes, but it gets better from here. We're going to start with the A minor pentatonic. Okay, all these are in the key of A, and they all start on the 5th fret, but if you want to, say, play in the key of G, you'd move this from fret 5 as your root down to fret 3, or if you wanted to play in the key of B, you start on fret 7. I'll do another lesson on where all these root notes are, but all these shapes are movable to whatever key that you want. Just a little side note for those that are not sure what I'm talking about when I say keys. A key is a collection of notes that work really well together, or like a musical family. When people play in bands or jam with other musicians, they tend to play in the same key, which means that they use the same notes. Okay, A minor pentatonic. So I'm going to use the finger per fret rule for most of these. I will tell you what fingers that I'm using. So we're going to start with the 5th fret on the low E string. Then we're going to play the 8th fret on the same string. I'm using my pinky for that one. Then we're going 5th fret, 7th fret on the A, 5th fret, 7th fret on the D, 5th fret, 7th fret on the G, 5th fret, 8th fret on the B, 5th fret, 8th fret on the high E. 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. All these scales can be played forwards and backwards, but just for the sake of today's video, I'm only going to play them ascending. The next scale in this toolkit is what we call the blues scale, which is very, very similar to the A minor pentatonic, but we're adding what's called the blue note, which is called the flattened 5th. Now, it doesn't belong to the key, but it adds a little bit of texture and a little bit of tension and release. It's really common in sort of the 60s British invasion. A lot of the guys, Clapton, Beck, all those kind of 60s guys, would use the flattened 5th note to kind of spice up the playing. Now, when you're improvising, use the flattened 5th note, but don't hang about on it, because otherwise you'll play a really nice lick, and if you hang around on it, it sounds really discordant. Whenever you play the blue note, it needs to be resolved. You see how that sounds so much better just for going from that blue note back up? Let's take a look at that then. So just as with the minor pentatonic, we're going to play fret 5 and fret 8 with his index finger and his pinky on the low E string. Now we're going to go fret 5, fret 6, fret 7 on the A string, and I'm using fingers 1, 2 and 3. So we've got 5, 8, 5, 6, 7. Moving on to the D, we're going to go fret 5, fret 7, fret 5, fret 7 on the G, and then with this pinky we're going to catch that 8th fret before we move on. So on the G you've got 5, 7, 8. Continuing on, we've got fret 5 on the B, fret 8 on the B, fret 5 on the high E, fret 8 on the high E. So those first 2 scales can be used in a sort of minor blues context, or you could use the blues scale over what we call a blues backing track over a dominant chord. I'll save all that for another lesson. The next scale is kind of a grown-up version of the minor pentatonic. It's what we call the natural minor scale. Now, there's quite a lot in it, so don't get too intimidated and click off the video. Stick around, it'll be well worth it. A lot of guitarists use the pentatonic as a framework and then use the natural minor scale to sort of add a little bit of extra sort of special sauce into it. So if I play a pentatonic lick, sounds pretty cool, but if I sort of sprinkle a little bit of natural minor on top of that, you almost get a bit more of a kind of Carlos Santana vibe. That's not the only guitar player that uses this. So many guitar players use the natural minor scale. But it's I'm sure once you get it under your fingers, you'll agree it's a little bit more grown-up sounding than just the pentatonic. This scale has mostly 3 notes per string for most of them, so again, make sure you're using the finger per fret rule. On the low E string, we're going to go 5, 7, 8, and that's with my index, ring finger, and my pinky. And then we're going to just mirror that and do exactly the same thing on the A string. 5, 7, 8. So we've got 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8. Moving on to the D string, we're just going to play 5 and 7, so that's just the same as the minor pentatonic. Now we're going to do what's called a position shift here, which means we're going to move his hand down a fret and we're going to play 4, 5, 7, and I'm using finger 1, finger 2 and finger 4, my index, middle and pinky. Then we're going to do another position shift back up to fret 5 where we started from, and we're going to do 5, 7, 8. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's just the same shape, but I move everything up a fret. Can you see how I move my finger? This is a really common sticking point for a lot of guitarists. They sort of struggle with that transition. So I was doing this with a student last night. You can just isolate those 6 notes if you're struggling and just kind of run around it and sort of program it to memory and then try and put it to the scale. Moving on, going off on tangents. We don't like tangents. Fret 5 on the high E, fret 7 on the high E, and fret 8 on the high E. So let's go through the whole scale. 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7. We're going to do a position shift and we're going to go 4, 5, 7. Position shift again, we're going to go 5, 6, 8. Onto the high E string, 5, 7, 8. Three down, 2 to go. So we're going to go with the major pentatonic next, okay? So this can be used, clues in the name, over any major backing tracks. Whenever I think of major pentatonic, I think of My Girl by the Temptations, because it's just the opening riff, the guitar riff is just the first octave of the C major pentatonic scale. We're going to do this in the key of A though, again, because everything's staying in A today. So we're going to start, really important for the next 2 scales, instead of starting with your index finger, I want you to start these 2 scales with your middle finger for me, okay? So we're going to start with the 5th fret on the low E with our middle finger. Moving on, we're going to go to the 7th fret of the same string. So we're going 5, 7 with fingers 2 and 4. Then we're going to go to the 4th fret of the A string with his index finger. And then with his pinky, we're going to go to the 7th fret of the A string. We're going to mirror that, moving on to the D, which is fret 4, fret 7. Now we're going to go fret 4 and fret 6. So what we're going to do on the G, we're going to go fret 4 with his index finger and fret 6 with our ring finger. Now this helps us for the next two notes of the scale. Now you could either do a position shift like we did in the previous scale, or you could use fingers 2 and 4 for these. I'll leave it entirely up to you. So moving on to the B string, we've got fret 5 and fret 7. I'm using my 2nd finger and my 4th finger, my middle finger and my pinky for these. You could use 1 and 3, it's entirely up to you. And then we're just going to mirror that on the bottom string as well, which is 5th fret, 7th fret, with either your 2nd and your 4th or your 1st and your 3rd. 5, 7, 4, 7, 4, 7, 4, 6, 5, 7, 5, 7. For his final scale, we're going to talk about the major scale, just the normal major scale, which is a more grown-up version of the major pentatonic that we've just been doing. Now, again, treat this like your natural minor. Use the pentatonic as a framework and then use either the major scale or the natural minor to add colour and just that extra little bit of class to your improvisation. So, again, start with your middle finger for me, okay, on the 5th fret. And the first 2 notes of this scale are exactly the same as the major pentatonic, so we've got fret 5 and fret 7 with your middle finger and your pinky. Moving on to the next string, we're going to go 4, 5, 7, and that's with his index, his middle and his pinky. Onto the D, you're going to do 4, 6, 7, which that's index, ring finger and your pinky. We're going to mirror that moving on to the G. 4, 6, 7 again with index, ring finger and pinky. Then we're going to use our middle finger on the 5th fret of the B, and then as pinky on the 7th fret of the and as pinky on the 7th fret of the B string. Moving on to the high E, you're going to go 4, 5, 7, which is index, middle, pinky. 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7. There's a lot of information there and it will take you a little bit of time to get all those under your fingers, but for you to become a great improviser and sort of get to the first stage of really kind of feeling like you're getting somewhere, you need to be able to recall these different scales and figure out the applications for them as well. I'm planning on doing an improvising series at some point that I think could help a lot of you, but this is a great foundation for kind of little things that you can practice on the couch without upsetting anybody, the starters, but also you can't speak a language if you don't learn the letters first. This is kind of one of those things. Which scale are you struggling with the most? Let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed today's lesson and you'd like to see some more from us, please do consider subscribing on the icon above. And if you want to learn something else, we've got some other videos for you to check out. Thank you very much for watching, and until I see you next time, keep practicing like a pro.